Okay, welcome back from lunch. I am very excited about our next speaker. Next up is Lex Crumpton, our defensive lead for ATT&CK, and she is proof that defense can indeed be exciting. She is the force that is working behind all of the defensive efforts on ATT&CK, and she really works to make sure that it reflects what defenders face every day. So welcome, Lex.
Thank you. For me, so please don't fall asleep on me after lunch. I know it was a good meal, but stay awake. I have a lot of good details here, and I want you guys to really enjoy this presentation. So today I'm going to talk to you guys about the defensive attack updates for MITRE ATT&CK. My name is Lex Crumpton. I'm a principal cybersecurity engineer. I've been in the workforce for over a decade now. I have been majority of a defensive defender SME within the workforce, but I have some red team experience within the workforce as well. Majority of my time, I wear many hats. I am the defensive lead for MITRE ATT&CK, where my purview is over detections, mitigations, and data collection. Occasionally, I'm a SME and CTID, where I answer all of their defensive questions. I worked on top attack techniques, sensor mappings to attack, and some various other projects within CTID itself. And then newly appointed technical lead of attack evaluations, where I oversee all 7 phases of the attack evaluation process for adversary emulation and assessing cybersecurity product tools. This is going from your planning stages all the way to execution and publications phases that I now oversee the whole entire process and make sure that it comes to good fruition with transparency and good results. And then lastly, Amy tends to throw me in any projects on the side where she needs my help. So I'm running around like a headless chicken all the time doing defensive work, okay? So what I'm introducing today is nothing short of a complete restructuring change to detections within the MITRE ATT&CK framework. We're introducing some new STIX objects. We're updating some STIX objects, formalizing relationships so that it will showcase to the cybersecurity community how to approach threat detections overall. This isn't just an incremental improvement. This is going to be a paradigm shift in order for us to help defenders move from isolated events to understanding full causal chains of adversary behaviors across enterprises. I'm going to go over a lot of technical details today, but I want you guys to keep one thing in mind. In order for me to bring this change to you guys for V18, I had to switch my way of thinking. I typically, as I said, have a lot of defender experience, look at detections as a sentence, as a singular event, as an isolated event. But for these changes to come about, I had to look at detections overall as a system. So I want you to keep that in mind. So before I get into the nitty-gritty details of all the cool stuff that's coming for V18, I have to go over how we got to this point. What is the evolution of where we started with ATT&CK to where we're going to move to? One thing that I have to notate for my section for an attack detection mission is we have to have clarity, flexibility, and actionability. When we looked at detections within ATT&CK itself, it was very much, I was introducing a detection reality gap when looking at the detection section, the data sources, data components, and overall how we're looking at detections, queries, analytics, or any of the things involving defensive. Detection engineering has scaled over time, and so in order for us to move with the modern threat landscape, I had to look and have a moment with myself and say, hey, we have to change this detection reality that we're introducing into the framework overall. So in V5, we had data sources at the top of the page in a metadata box field, and we had a detection section at the bottom of a technique or sub-technique page that was very much a paragraph, very much a prose, very much throwing all platforms, behaviors, telemetry all together into one single field. Next in V10, we moved data sources to that detection section. We introduced data components instead of having the just data sources. We're a little bit more descriptive than abstract data sources, data components in V10, but it didn't give that one-to-one mapping of what a defender typically needed to collect overall, given the platform. And then as you can see for V10, we still had the detection statement at the bottom of the page that had everything merged together. From V15-ish timeframe to V17, this is when we started getting into the nitty-gritty details of the new updates. where I had detection statements going directly to data components. I had listed out multiple data components, and then we introduced analytics or detection queries per data component. So these analytics could have multiple platforms merged together within that detection query. My detection statements per data component could have a little bit more detail overall for what you needed to collect as a defender, but I still felt like it wasn't scaling very well. I was just dumping out singular detections itself, and there was too many platforms prescribed in one singular data component field. So this is how it gets to the old model breaking, or my section, my team, not really doing its job effectively, right? When we get to the modern threat reality of where the landscape is moving to, we have to consider living off the land. We have to consider benign activity that a regular sysadmin could do, and we weren't really prescribing the difference between malicious or suspicious activity within attack itself. I could give tool-focused signatures. I could give indicators that were static over time, like Mimikatz or PowerShell or the command line that was used to do the adversary activity. But we all know those change. We all know the adversary tries to do something different because we have found a way to find them out. Next, I was prescribing a singular event detection. I just listed command execution. I just listed file modification. When techniques unfold across multiple chains, events across causal relationships over time, so there's multiple data points that prove evidence of adversary activity that we were not capturing. Third, I was being very platform agnostic. As we saw in my detection query, I had Windows, Linux, Mac OS, all in that detection query. Some of my detection statements without analytics or detection queries had just regular information, regardless of platform within the data component itself. And for a defender, we need to know the difference between the platforms. Windows has something different, Linux has something different, Mac OS has something different. And so for us who are fast-paced, who are moving, just to see attack and detections and not have the information that is needed is not helpful for us on a day-to-day basis. And then lastly, the static and unversioned content. I was putting out updates every release, guys. It was not showcasing in the change logs. You guys did not know I was doing my job, okay? That's problematic. We need to change that. And then also with how the adversary is rapidly evolving, my updates weren't coming fast enough, I'll tell you that. I was a little slow, even though they were coming out. So to require the agility that is needed for the modern threat landscape, I felt like this is why my detection section was breaking overall. This got me to my big question. I had to put on my Einstein brain hat. I had to start thinking with my insanity here and there. And I had to look at how we were representing detections in attack, and how can I prescribe it in a way that's abstract enough to generalize across platforms that is still helpful, and attacker variations, but still concrete enough to be useful for the different implementations that you could see in the wild. I got to the point where my job should not tell a defender exactly what rule to write, like a Sigma rule, an SQL, a KQL, or whatever, but I should be able to tell you what to look for, why it matters, what they need to collect, where to look, how to start building it, and what parts are flexible depending on who is looking at this blueprint. So this is where I get to the part where I'm breaking all the things, okay? I'm making my team's job harder. Sorry, software dev team. But also I'm trying to make the defender's life easier for all of you guys. So let's get into what is gonna come for VA team. What I am changing. We have 2 new sticks objects. 1 new sticks relationship that's gonna happen, which is replacing an old one. There's an updated sticks object in here that I did not capture, but just keep that in mind. We're doing this for all 3 domains, ICS, mobile, enterprise, all 10 platforms. The new cloud platform, Windows, Linux, Mac OS, containers, network devices, all of the platforms. Now, for right now, there are 700 detection strategies coming in. There are going to be 1,700 analytics or detection queries, depending on how you word it, that's going to be in V18. And then there's going to be over 1,400 log source mappings or relationships to data components. My first fixed object, the detection strategy. This is going to be your behavioral first blueprint that defines what the adversary behavior is and why it matters. I have to say that this does not contain all of the detection logic itself within this SEO or within this object. It does have a sticks ID, so DET and the numerical value. It does have a name. It does have our first sticks relationship going to attack techniques instead of the former data components going to attack techniques. It's going to live here on the detection strategy level. And then we have an analytic reference to the next object that's new and upcoming. This is going to be the IDs themselves that live in the detection strategy object, but this is where you can find the connection to all of the pieces moving forward. The next object, the analytic SEO, is going to be the platform-specific actionable detection logic that maps directly to data collection and mutable elements. Keep this in mind. So however many platforms are prescribed in the attack technique or sub-technique, there is going to be an analytic for that given platform. They all have a sticks ID, AN, and the numerical value, the platform that it applies to, the detection statement, the reference to data components, and then the mutable elements field that tells you what's going to be different that you need to consider per organization that you are in. Let's take a pause here. First, that is a lot of information that I just gave you guys. How did I get here with my insanity, right? Attack already gives us a lot of this information. We can synthesize all of this data that's in the framework for input into these new analytic objects. Attack has technique and sub-technique descriptions. They have platforms, and they have data components that we've already put our blood, sweat, and tears in to put into the framework. And then from a defender's knowledge, we know what telemetry is available, depending on your organization. What are the defensive realities, the false positive noise, what's realistic to detect, and how those noise patterns and correlation values that we think subconsciously that we can put into paper form into our analytic objects. This gets me to my brain dump, my Lexi brain dump, or my mental transformation of how I get to this information and put it on paper. We know that the adversary has an intention. What goal are they trying to achieve? The environmental activity of what's supposed to be happening on your computer system, what a defender should see, what is their visibility, and then putting all the pieces together like a puzzle to correlate those patterns together and showcase the unstructured or the buried suggestions that we're going to give. So an example, if we need to replace the boot image, or if the adversary is trying to replace the boot image for TFTP, we know in our environment there's going to be a device change, a config change logs that's going to happen. We know that there's going to be a transfer of an image potentially. We know that there may be a reboot, right? How do I find this information? Well, config change is in the CLI logs. We have a network transfer for the TFTP transfer. And then we have syslogs for the device reboot or the image uploaded that we can look for. And that gets me to my and or statements that I start to put together for the correlation of config change and TFTP and the reboot and possibly a new hash gets you to your behavioral detection overall of how we can look at this from that perspective and get away from the indicator or the signature perspective. So just for awareness, for the goal of the detection statements, I had to make sure that I'm telling the defender what to actually observe and correlate and not the adversary's intentions or implementations. I just don't want to copy a paste of attack techniques and what they're prescribing in the descriptions, but I want to tell you what to observe and how to put it together to build the picture. So we're looking at cause and effect. If I water the plant, it's going to grow, right? How do I think about that in terms of detections? What is the behavioral centric approach when trying to build these detection statements? Can I map it to realistic telemetry? I know I tell you guys sysmon all the time. Sysmon needs to be configured sometimes, right? Is that realistic to tell you guys to map to if you guys can't do it or if it's too resource intensive? Making sure that I'm telling you the difference between the behaviors per platform. Like I said, Windows has different processes, Linux has different processes, Mac OS has different processes. And so that's important to know. And lastly, being agnostic of tooling variations. I don't want to just tell you to go and look for Mimikatz, and the adversary says, they're too smart, guys. I need to change the name. So I'm gonna call it bob.exe, but it has Mimikatz behaviors, right? So making sure that it can flex and build and scale with how the threat landscape is moving. The next piece that I showed you guys in the analytic SDO, or the analytic object, is the tunable elements or the mutable elements. What pieces change per organization? Thresholds, whitelists, time windows, users, hosts, IP addresses, anything that changes from when Nancy did it at vendor A to when Bob did it at vendor B, and they are not the same. Those are the things I'm telling you to keep in your considerations when you're building these analytics or building these detections, because they're still important to know so that when you are building your queries, building your detections, you can input them in, but they may not be the same for everybody else. All right, those were my two new objects. Let's go over the upgraded object here. We had data sources and we had data components. Data components is staying. Data sources is going away. I'm breaking it. I'm taking it from you guys. Please do not use it anymore, okay? So data components was our activity or action that showcase where you're finding the adversary's evidence. I am now changing this or adding to it and putting it into a permutation list that will show you all of the relationships to telemetry, to sensors, to log sources, regardless of platform. So if you have process creation, you're going to see Windows event logs 4688, sysmon1, ATT&CK CVE, I think is what it's called, something from macOS, unified logs. All of those log sources are going to live in a dictionary underneath that data component object. They also get the 6 ID. So this is going to get DC and the numerical value. My anatomy for log sources is something that I have hodgepodge together for right now. I did put a little thought into it. I won't take that away from myself, but I do need some help, right? There's different platforms that I'm doing 10. They are all not the same. So this is the first way I thought about doing this, where it makes it consistent across all 10 platforms. If this does not work, please let me know, because I will greatly take your advice and try to improve this. But for now, log sources has a pre and a post, like I talked about in my last ATT&CKcon talk, where the telemetry originates, and then what specific data stream you're collecting from, channel, component, feed, or whatever. So Windows Event Logs security, Windows Event Logs sysmon, because it lives in Windows Event Logs for now. ATT&CK syscalls, as you see, that's a record type and not a channel, specific channel. That's where the pitfalls fall for right now, but it makes sense, okay? Just hear me out. macOS unified logs, that has the platform first and then the actual log file, because there's no sub-channels within unified logs. But for now, you understand that unified logs directly maps to macOS. And then in the channel section, we have event IDs, numerical identifiers, operations, which are API calls, and then descriptive strings where you don't have either of those. Some logs don't have an event code, event ID, or an API call. They just give out a text of what you're supposed to be looking for. So all three options are considered within that channel section. Here are some of my examples for my pre and my post. I have operating systems, cloud, container, security and monitoring. Please pay attention to that one, because that brings in EDR. That brings in network security monitoring. That brings in NIDS. All of those monitoring and security and monitoring devices that we should be looking for without me telling you which specific vendor is going to live in this area. Applications, so your SaaS, your HubSpot, Salesforce, audit for the regular ones, your Okta, your GitHub, all of those are going to live in the application layer. And then your network, which is your network devices and just regular network, right? So if I have network devices logs, that is directly prescribed to the network device itself. If I have network, that is just the regular network that's happening on an operating system for right now. Again, I'm open to adding to this. This is not the full entire list. There's a bunch more, and my team is working on helping me get through it, right? But if you have ideas on things that I should have included once you see the V18 release, please let me know, because I would greatly appreciate for us to get a super normalized list that is covering all bases. And that way we can make sure that the system works overall. And then I have to point out back to CTID, when I worked on sensor mappings to attack, I did utilize some of this methodology to map data sources or data components, to sensors, to log sources, to telemetry. Same methodology. I'm looking at the descriptions for keyword context that matches the descriptions of data components. And then I'm looking at data elements and the relationship that it builds when trying to do this activity. If you ever find a telemetry, event log, a log source or sensor that you're unsure of, this is the methodology that I'm following, and it has worked thus far. I was the team lead for this project, so that's where we're going to go with. All right, that was a lot of information, but what is the high level? What's the bottom line up front, Lex? We have our detection strategy. We have however many analytic SDOs that there's going to be, however many platforms for the analytics. And then that's going to map to your data component level, which prescribes the log source and the actual activity or action that you're collecting given that analytic itself. One detection strategy object for now linked to a technique, right? But I will say there is possibility for more, depending on how much I want to maintain, because I have to do all this. But let's say I am going for the more file-centric approach for detection strategies, given scheduled task. There may be a memory version that I don't have. So that would build a whole new detection strategy, given whatever is going to be needed. And I know you guys are going to ask me, what does the website look like, Lex? Okay, I don't care about this back-end stuff. I need the UI. So on the website, come V18, on the technique page, you're going to scroll down where you saw my detection section. It's now going to say detection strategies. Instead of data components and the detection statements with detection queries, you're going to see the name of the detection strategy, the analytic IDs, which are going to the individual platforms, and then the analytic or detection statement within that SDO is going to showcase on the technique page. If you click that link to detection strategies, it's going to take you to a new page. This is where all my nitty-gritty details are going to live. It still links back to the attack technique. You see the detection strategy ID. You see the analytic IDs in the metadata box. And then right there at the below left corner, you're going to see analytics with tabs. Those tabs are going to have your analytic ID, the detection statement, the log source mappings, the mutable elements that you're going to need, all right there for you to look at one source. No page flipping, because I don't like it. The only page flipping actually is the tabs, I'm sorry. So if you're going from Windows to Linux, that is a page flip. It's just a tab flip, page flip, same idea. But that everything that is needed from that SDO, from the detection strategy standpoint, is going to live on that singular page for you guys. All right, the sad part. How am I going to make you guys' job harder? What am I breaking? Well, MITRE detections was the free text blob that you guys saw from V5. V10 still lives in the 6 objects. I'm taking it away, okay? I'm kicking the can down the street. It has to go. We can no longer have it. So after V18, it's no longer going to be in Excel. It's no longer going to be in the sticks. It's going to be deprecated out. Please do not use it. Relationship type detects. This was your sticks relationship object between data components and techniques. No longer going to be there. The new relationship object is going to be between detection strategies and techniques. So if you have one linked to data components and techniques, it's going to break. Lastly, MITRE data sources. I said I was kicking her out. You guys are no longer useful, right? After V18, that is going to be deprecated out. The new one is going to be MITRE log sources. I'll check on that one. But it's going to be log sources. I just don't know the title right now. MITRE data sources is going away. That's it for me, right? That was a lot of nitty-gritty details. That was a lot of Lexi brain dump of how she is bringing about change, how she's trying to answer the question of being actionable and flexible and giving clarity, right? I hope you guys dive into this release. I really hope that you guys can contribute to my detection strategy idea and give me some useful information to help defenders on a daily basis. Thank you.
Tarek?
So, the mutable field stuff is awesome, honestly. Like, I want that not only on the MITRE stuff, I want it on like Sigma, I want it like all over.
Yeah.
I want to just grab this idea in your head. When it comes to exceptions to the rules, like anything that I need to, like, this is the rule, and unless I see like this particular process, then that's fine. Having that as a field would be awesome, because like we need to do like exceptions quite often, and having that kind of codified somewhere. So when I'm doing my and like not to put kind of machine learning into this, but like when I do something like machine learning, I can kind of send it across like all the logs that I collect. I can very easily, if I have it in something that is machine readable, I can very easily say like, here's all the data. Figure out what the exceptions that I need to create based on the fields that I'm getting from you guys. So that's the thing that I would love to see in this, because it would solve like a very specific problem for me specifically.
Yeah.
The question was, would you please consider a field for exceptions?
The answer is yes. So in my mutable elements, it's very free-flowing right now. I'll put it that way. I have a field name and then a descriptive string on the back end. I can very much see exclusions being a field name and then that description being whatever the exclusion that we need to consider. Yeah.
Ivan?
Yeah, so what I want to ask, because my life fell apart when you said the one-to-one mapping on the strategy to technique. How would you like us to approach and give you ideas? And are you thinking already about what happens when you have a detection strategy that covers multiple techniques? Like if we see these techniques together, that's our detection.
You want to repeat the question? Yeah. How do I handle when there can be or may be detection strategies that span over multiple techniques? And how do I want you guys to give me information regarding contrib ideas, right? So currently, the way I'm prescribing my detection strategies is very focused on the nuance of the behavior for that given technique. The only way that I see a duplication is between the parent and the sub, because the parent is all encompassing, right? I have not run across a situation where it's flipped, where there's multiple behaviors that span multiple parent techniques. It's very much directly to the technique of what we need to do to find it. If you find one, please let me know so that I can look into it, because I haven't run across that case. For the contrib idea, I would love for you guys to send me the article, what specifically they found as evidence, what is the log source, what is the telemetry, and then what you feel is the behavior, the underlying nitty-gritty details that does not change given the adversary's intention or given the technique itself. Write it all up in email, Slack me, LinkedIn me. I'm open everywhere. Just send it on in. Yeah.
I'm going to think on that last one.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Thank you, Lex.
Yeah.